All right, things are a little different on this. Good morning, I'm Rhonda Burkhart from HCC, and we are going to be discussing our calendar year end. Go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. Great. Okay.
I don't
So-
have the ability to mute people either.
You can't mute people? Okay,
No,
all right.
Several unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, the settings are a little bit different when we're in here, so I apologize for the technical difficulties. If you can hear yourself on the recording and your remote, please mute yourself.
Is Liz there or did she go,
You can mute yourself, please. Let's see. Here.
this is Lisa.
Options. Okay. Right. Yes, there are a couple people I needed to mute. Thank you.
There's still a couple. Because there's still one, too.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
assuming-
cool.
Okay, there's one more. Okay. All right, not me. Okay, I think we got most everybody here. Great. Sorry about that. Okay, most everything is similar to last year. There's just a couple of different things for USAS. USPS is another matter, so we'll try and get through USAS in about 45 minutes, which is typical. And so we'll just go ahead and we attached our checklist yesterday, but if you have any questions, always submit a ticket is the best way to get a response quickest. So other than that, I know people tend to email us directly or call, but sometimes we are unavailable or might be on a long, session with somebody. So a ticket is the best way to contact us. We'll be putting up our meeting on our usual, see, this won't go to the screen, it goes to the exact document on the HCC website in the usual spot. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna see if I can get this to share my screen instead of the particular documents. That's not there, that's not there. Okay, let's see what we've got here. This one, let's see if we can share. Oh, there's a window, share entire screen. I think that will do it. Try it. Let's see if that works. That, and then if I want to do here and go there. Yes, that's what I wanted. Okay, great. Now I can do some demos and stuff. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Sorry about the delay. So as always, it's pretty much the same as last year. There's just like one or two little differences. So with our pre-closing procedures, you just want to double check. There's a setting for the tax IDs when entering a new vendor. And so that's going to be up with under system configuration. This drops down, choose configuration, and then down on this vendor tax ID number. And then you can choose, there's several different types. There's no warning. You're going to require it for all vendors, require for only 1099 vendors, warrant for all vendors, and warrant for only 1099 vendors. So there's some options that you can choose for that. If you want to do that, it's a good initial setup thing, just so that at the end of the year, you don't have the, oh, I've got to make a bunch of adjustments. I need a bunch of 1099 forms, that type of thing. So it just makes a stressful time a little less stressful if you can do it all, during the year. Okay, so that's the configuration. And this is the warning that you would get if it was set. So they can say, like your tax ID number must be set, and then your tax ID for a 1099 vendor has not been entered. So it'll give you an error warning depending on how you set this configuration up. All right. So then we can view our vendors. There's several different ways you can view your vendors to check to make sure that they're set up as they need to be in advance of calendar year end, your 1099s. So you can go to the core vendors and you can add the fields on with the more button on the vendor screen. So you would want to add the type 1099 under the 1099 dropdown, and then under the tax ID dropdown, you'd add the tax ID type and the ID number. And then under the amount number dropdown, it's the year-to-date taxable total. I gave you a nice screenshot there so you can see with all the different nested dropdowns, it's kind of hard to find them sometimes, but we can help you with that. And then you can do a grid filter. That's the first way of figuring that out, is doing the grid filter, and under the type 1099 field, which is filtered here or added to your grid there, then you can add, it's like a less than greater than sign and non 1099 to find all vendors that are currently flagged as 1099 vendors. Then you'll want to filter in your year to date total or taxable total, those that are greater or equal to 600. And that's the first way that you can find them. Sometimes there's too many on your grid and you'll get an error. You can also do an advanced query search, which is another way to do that. You can do a report search. So here's an example of how we did it on the grid right here for that non 1099, and then it gets all those NECs, attorney gross proceeds, medical bills, royalties, all of that. And then it's only filtering out for the ones that would need to get the $600. So there's that way of doing it. And then another way is down here. You can always export it off your grid. And the second way is the 1099 vendor report, and that's off of report manager. And then that will help you find all your 1099, what is in there already. So that would be, so the first way is go into your core vendors, and then I've already done this, and I actually included all the, all your different address lines there. So looks like the city's on there twice. State, postal code, all that. So filter that way. And then you'd want to do your greater or equal than 600. So this is just an easy way to do that. So right away, this one is just screaming at me, what the heck? Why are there no states in the demo instance? It's like, why isn't anything in there? So then you'd have to look those up. I'm sure yours isn't like this. This is the demo instance. So, then you'd say, oh, well, I need to have these in here, put up on your W-9 form, and then fill that in. So here, we'll just say it's a 08. I'm going to guess and say that's like Connecticut or something like that. So then you'd make any corrections that you would need to make. And then there you go. And then if you need to add in, so like the tax ID type, engineering, I'm going to say this is EIN, and then it's going to need a number. I don't know if that's about right. Let's see if it'll let me do that. No, it's not a good ID. I'm just going to throw something in there. It's gonna let me do that. It's gonna let me do that. It's not gonna let me do that. Well, you would fill that in, so with the correct one, which is off the form. So it's basically sort through, find any issues, and make corrections as needed. So that is for the ones that you know about. The second way to filter this is the advanced query. So here we go. This one is going to look for 1099 vendors. And this setup is listed in the guide for the fiscal or the calendar year end. So it'd be type 1099 not equals non 1099, and year-to-date taxable total is greater or equal than 600. Okay, so there's other ones for like royalties, which you would use. Royalties a little bit different. So like for this one is 1099 equals royalties, and year-to-date taxable total. So royalties has got to be over 10. So you'd fill that in, save that query, apply that query. You can use that year after year once you get it set up. So here I've got one, runner and low. And so they're set up with royalties, but here we would need to add in their type. Yeah, their EIN, and I'm not going to add it because it keeps telling me I've got a wrong ID number, so I'm just not going to add that one. Let's say we added that, and then you'd save that. So you can see, oh, I've got a royalty, but I need to add this. Get that in there. Get that all correct. See if their address is all right. Just going to say that's North Carolina. So then that's all in there. And you save that. Okay, so there we go. You just go through, make corrections as needed. So
When I do that, it says it's too excessive, the query cost.
the query cost, let's see.
Maybe I did it.
All right, let's see.
Am I not doing it?
Okay, so you're trying to do that one. Okay,
Is that not the
non
right one?
1099, and then greater or equal to 600. Yeah, the excessive query. Okay, so with those, then it might be better if you don't put in anything else. Then if you get that, it's
that's
too
fine,
much,
right.
too many.
Right.
So if that's the case, then one of the other options might be best. If you have
Okay,
the advanced query, you could do it through there. We could try it through there.
this is advanced query.
Advanced query would have to have a drop down. So it would be dropped down from this load saved query to 1099 vendors. Okay, and apply your query. And then take those out, yeah.
Well, I think
Take the whole thing out to apply the query. Yeah, so you can't do grid filters and advanced query. So there, that yours showed up now.
Okay.
Okay, so that worked. Yeah, so if you come across where it has an error, then try the advanced query. If that's not working, then you can go into report manager. And then I like to do the 1099. And then you've got your 1099 vendor report. I always use the wildcards, and then you can filter for it very quickly. And here's your 1099 report. And so it's going to find anything greater or equal to 600, regenerate that report. And voila. There you go. And here's our 1099 report. Again, you can see, what do I do with my pen? Did I make my pen? Okay. There it is. Okay. So why is this not going through to my? This should be bringing this up on the screen, and it's not. That's odd. Huh. I don't know if I have to stop share and share. It should report be okay, share I should be doing share the entire screen. And then. Should be getting this. There it goes. Okay. I guess sometimes when you run reports, it's gonna have to, I'll have to share and unshare. Okay, so for this one, it's listing each type, each group, the non-employee compensation. And so for some people, this is a better layout. And then again, we can see our states. Oh, well, our states aren't in here. We have to go back through, look up our forms, populate that, save those, rerun the report, make sure everything's good. Oh, we need tax ID types, we need tax ID numbers. So this is great to do, like, starting now, just to make sure, you know, everything's building correctly and you're ready to go for calendar year end. So then you can enjoy your Christmas. So after you do, that's another way to do it. And then, so you got your 1099 report, and then the other way is, good, that's coming through. The advanced query, and then of course there's always through the instance. So the periodic, the 1099 extracts. So you can also do it through there. Our demo instance is back in time a bit. So we have to use 2021, you'll be using 2025. You can either run one or two different reports at the same time. And then I always say exclude, uncheck this exclude, because you want to include everybody. And of course, in our current circumstance, in our demo instance, not many would populate. And then you print your 1099 report, but always remember that your contact phone number cannot be empty. So you print that off. And see both of them printed, the miscellaneous and the NEC. We'll take a look at this one. So, and this has some nice stats on it. You know, obviously yours would have more in there. And remember, attorney gross proceeds is, they would get that, an MISC form, if it's from like proceeds from a lawsuit. So if you had something where they said, well, we're gonna try this case for you, but we get X amount, X percent or whatever. That is the MISC. Otherwise, they'll get an NEC. So, and then I've got one for royalty payments for maybe a school music program. And then there's a medical one for medical care. So I also have a handy, a handout for like this one thing I created a couple years ago about the 1099s, who gets what kind, some different examples. We can talk about that individually based on the circumstance that you're going through, and you can figure out what kind of form they get, if they get a form. So that's handy to have on hand. All right, so there's also might need some vendor adjustments. And that is for circumstances like a voided prior fiscal year check. So if you had to void out a check and then reissue it, you know, it's crossing lines there, date lines, then you would do a vendor adjustment. So I had an example that I did. In the demo where I did something like that. And that was vendor. Just wait. There. Okay, so they had a prior fiscal year voided check. And so I did that where you reconcile receipt and then refund. And so then I did this adjustment where I did that. They say they like you to do it in December. I don't think it has to be an open period to do that. Remember to mark taxable as true, so it affects that balance on your 1099. So if you did a refund of a prior year check, I would just go back through, make sure you have those vendor adjustments so you get the correct balance for that. You can go through these on a individual basis if you want to submit a ticket. If you've got questions about that.
Is that where you also, like, if you paid somebody, but then they also did reimbursements, and you've got to take the reimbursements out? Is that where you do that?
If you reimburse an employee?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
No, like somebody that does our football stats, I paid him, but then he's also bought things that we've reimbursed him for. So
That
I'm
would-
only, his 1099 should only be on what I paid him for.
Yeah, his 1099 should only be on
His income.
his income, like, so if he did
So
a
I need to be able
service,
to take the reimbursement out of
take
what,
the reimbursement
Is that where I
out
do
of
that
that. Yeah, either that or set up a different vendor form. But, which is kind of like, oh. But I would say on your description, be very clear about, I'm making this adjustment for the taxable because, you know, this is a reimbursement of certain expenses.
but it'll be done in that vendor adjustment.
Right, yeah, and I always say, make a before and after picture, just do like a little screenshot. And then, so, okay, this is what it was, and then I've got what I needed to take out of that total for the tax form. And then kind of like what it was, and then you've got a screenshot, and then make your adjustment, and then compare it with what you had before, and just say, yeah, that's what I wanted it to look like. We can walk through that if you want. So vendor adjustments as needed. Okay, if you have a lot of those, there is an import. We don't usually have a lot of those. Here it is. They recommend you do the adjustment in December, but posting period does not usually open or current. I do believe December, which would be active for you right now, needs to be open at least in order to run the reports. So what you just did, the 1099 reports. So here's another example of a vendor adjustment. Okay, and then all the paper descriptions. So that you know exactly what went on. So the next thing, after you get everything reviewed and you've got everything updated and you get your vendor adjustments in, then it's time to close out the month end. So you do your regular procedures. There's nothing unusual here. If you do want extra reports that aren't included, we can set up a separate report bundle that will run at calendar year end. So if you've got some special reports you want for calendar year end, we can do that. Now, every time you run a report out of your periodic, every time you run this, it's going to go into your file archive. So that's probably not one you want to do because it's already going to save there already, you know. But if there's something else, something special that you like, we can do that. You can set it up so they save their monthly. You can get it so they save their fiscal year end or calendar end. So if you have something in mind, let me know and we can get that set up for you. All right. Here. Okay. Okay. And then all your monthly reports will be saved as usual in the file archive. There's different calendar year reports that also get saved for December. And there's also monthly ones, the usual monthly ones. There is a utilities proration utility, which some districts use, not all. Some have decided to use that for their workers' comp. It's a nice way to, if you have like a workers' comp bill and you want it based on your salaries for the year, you can do that. The nice item on this is So you could do utilities, proration utility. You would need, and it gives you different time periods. You can do month to date, calendar to date, fiscal year to date. So I'm gonna use I have a BWC filter that I've set up. And then I would save it like as BWC PO or whatever. I would create that. And then down here, you put it in this cell, what your bill is. We're just gonna say it's 50,000. And then you can create your POCSV. And then you'd be able to upload that. There is an account mapping. So this is filtering on salary accounts, and it's basically allocating it out. Here's your calendar year to date. I'm gonna take this portion over the total sum. That's your proration percent of about 3%, and then multiply it by that 50,000, and I'm gonna get this. So it's prorating that. But that's all salaries right now that I'm pulling by. But for BWC, I want the object to be different. So there's an account mapping, which is similar. It's kind of similar to like the payroll one, where you can change those. And so I set that up. So even though this one is salaries, I'm just gonna make a vendor up. And I've got to change the date because our system. It's going to change your salary objects to BWC objects. And so you download that, and then, say through the magic of TV, it's going to give you this PO upload. And so as you can see, it has changed your object codes by doing that account mapping. It changed the salary one for the object to a BWC one. And then I always say double check your totals. I usually copy and paste them over to the side and say, oh, well, I had 50,000 and this is actually, that's gonna go away, $49,948.68. So it's not quite 50. So I found out what the difference is. And then I just said, okay, well, that's that. I'm just going to add that on just to like either the largest number, the first number, however you do that. So just make sure that when you upload this, that you actually have 50,000 for what you wanted for your bill or whatever your bill happens to be. So, but it's nice. That's kind of a nice little thing that helps you. Oh, I can substitute all these real quick without doing a find replace. And then I can create my PO real quick, and then just load it right into the PO. I can import that. That's a nice little thing they've got. All right. So some districts use this, some don't. It's your choice what you want to do. And then there's just some different information on the proration utility, and how that goes, and that is that account. Right here. So I've done that. It's similar. It looks a lot like the account. You know, so I'm just changing my object from here to there. For that. So it's kind of in that same format.
There's a major delay between what we see up there and what they see at home.
Oh,
Yeah, like I'm just now seeing the account code mapping.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are we caught up yet?
Nope, no.
Are we up to 1099?
I mean, this is what.
Oh, wow. That is a major delay.
Yeah, it's kind of huge, and eventually it'll Yeah,
Okay.
and then
great.
we gotta wait till it scrolls.
Till it goes to the 1099 creation. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's not.
People would fall asleep and this is exciting stuff.
All right.
All right,
Now
great.
it's there.
7 years and I finally get a laugh. Yes. 1099 creation. Okay. So we will submit your 1099s to the IRS and the state of Ohio. So that takes that weight off your shoulders. We're going to be sending out a share base. We use share base and just kind of maybe flag that on your email. And then you would just, when you have that file and it downloads, then you would upload that to share base. So we'll get to the file that you will upload very soon. So on the periodic 1099 extracts, select 2025 as the payment year. So December, as I said, must be open in order to do that, and it's December. And these are the different types, NEC and MISC. Those changed a few years ago. Now, we have an odd calendar this year. So you need to actually mail your NECs and MISC forms by February 2nd. You get all of the weekend to do that. And then the tape file, or the TAP, we need that uploaded to the share base by January 16th. I think that's the day after Martin Luther King Day. We run procedures on those and just make sure that there's like formatting. So like sometimes you have formatting that's different. We've had situations where in like the name field, there's been a space instead of a blank where it would pick up what the normal thing was. So there would be like no name, and it would pick that stuff up. There's all different kinds of things that we run it through the paces of our screening, and we can find different issues where it would fail in going to the IRS. So we try and at least get that cleared up for you beforehand. And then also, I don't usually recommend, but waiting until February 2nd on that Monday, which would be actually like closing for January and everything, to send those. We have a lot of instances where, well, maybe not a lot, but several, where if you send out your 1099s early enough and there's an issue, that the person would get back to you before we would actually send your files to the IRS, which helps alleviate doing corrections to 1099s and all that, which is not fun. So we advise you not to wait till February 2nd, but you can legally do that. So it is your choice what to do. But we do need to have those uploaded by January 16th so that we can do our procedures. All right. So there's different file types. So the IRS format is that TAP, the tape, for what we use for the IRS submission. So the IRS format, when you generate that, and not the report, but generate the file, that is the file that you would upload to our share base. So, and then we would send that to the IRS for you in the state of Ohio. The XML format is if you'd use a third-party printing software. And then otherwise the printer sealer copies, which is those forms that we have right upstairs, which you're going to pick up after this or after the payroll section. Please pick those up, and then you'll have those at your district ready to go when the new year hits. So those are the ones that print out, and then they can be printed, and then they've got like the self-sealing thing, like your little folding machine can get those all folded, and then you can just stamp those and send them on their merry way. That is over here. Periodic 1099. So the IRS format, and remember we uncheck this so everybody gets in. You gotta fill in your phone number. And then you have to select a form. So you can do either one or you can do both. Do both at the same time. After you do a report, we're gonna run a report. We're gonna review a report. We're gonna make sure everything's okay on these. Okay, we're gonna go through, we're gonna make all of our corrections, make sure everything looks good, everybody's got states, like this one doesn't, and, all of that. And, all the numbers are correct, we've done all our vendor adjustments that we need to. Then we would go, when we're all done with that, we would go ahead and generate, and this is the IRS format, which is the tape. Generate that, and those go up there. And so it's actually going to say both up here. This actually says both. So we can actually send it to the IRS saying both. You can do one and then the other if you prefer. Do it like that. And then, so that one just says NEC. And so you could do an NEC and an MISC, or you could do the one that says both. And either you do an NEC and an MISC, or the one that says both, with both of them checked, and that's okay. And then the other is, this is another printing software, this XML. Reference copies are kind of like your person comes and they say, oh, we just want an extra copy or something. We can do that. Printer sealer copies are what comes, we print those on the forms from upstairs and you mail them to the vendors. You have the option to truncate the TINs if you wish. There's a little tiny box right up here. You can do that. You can truncate that. And then it's a form of security. Just the mail being what it is, you can do that. It's your choice if you want to do that or not. And then you go ahead and generate those forms. I'll go ahead and do both. Once again, you can do both. Generate those forms. Okay. And then it's gonna do both of those. Okay, so you can see there's an NEC and an MISC. So even though we checked them both, the tape file does it both, but when you do the actual forms that you're going to print out, you get two different files because the forms are just a little bit different. And check the back. I've kind of paper clipped them all together upstairs, but on the back there is, in the fine print, there is something that notes if they're NEC forms or if they're MISC forms. So they're just, the forms are just slightly different. Most everything prints out on the form itself, but on the back there is verbiage that says NEC or MISC. So you'd open up one of these, and so then you'd get, this is the NEC ones, and then you would put your NEC form. I would advise just printing page 1 of 1 and making sure it's aligned in your printer properly. So just do the first one, and then, okay, that works well. I've got the paper in there correctly, and then, then we're good to go for the rest of them, and then do like 2 through 10 or whatever. So, and then you fold it through, put it through your folding machine, get it folded and, all stuck together correctly for mailing, put it through the stamper, and away we go. So that's that. All right, so we've got that all printed out. Your forms are all printed out. Again, you can select both, or you can select either or. And the submission files can include the vendors that don't have a tax ID. Not everybody's gonna, be on the ball. So, So you leave it in, you can leave the IRS format to get your 1099 report. You have to have your phone number again. And then you just select your report to get the report and generate the, in this case, that would be the tape file. So this is just going through what we did. Okay, one very important thing for your tape file, do not email these because they contain social security numbers and EINs. Do not email them. Send them either in, or for those, you would want to submit them to the share base. The share base is a secure uploading, kind of like what a bank would use. So that is a secure way to send those to us. Do not send those by email. All right. Or anything else. So whenever you send us anything, please make sure it doesn't have social security numbers and EINs on it. All right. And then we have 1099s are upstairs. Those are the W-2s, which can be picked up in just a bit. And new for this year, the job scheduler on the utilities menu has an option for you to generate the 1099 job within the job scheduler. But since it generates every time you run the report, I'm not quite sure why you do it. It'll populate. They just gave it as an extra option. I don't know, but that would be utilities. Hopefully this is up to date. You would create. See if this one's up to date. There it is. So you can have a sealer job. There was a copy A, B, copy 1, 2, copy C. So you can set that up if you want to. Then you put a cron in there, cron expression. So if you want to do that, you can. You don't have to because it's kind of taken care of, but they added that as an option. All right, next you would, after you're done printing your forms, make sure you have December as your current period. And then close December. It's going to take a little bit longer, just like fiscal year end, because there's extra reports to run for calendar year end, just like it was in fiscal year end. So just make sure, you want to make sure that you get the year-to-date totals that are as of December and not as of January. Those are going to be different, a lot different. So there we go. And then those are listed under your calendar year reports. So your calendar year reports are going to be under calendar. Your monthlies are on monthly. So if you're looking for your 1099s, look under your calendar year to find your 1099s. And those will be saved in there. Every time you run them, they are saved. So you might have, if you do them multiple times, job 1, job 2, job 3, they'll number them. These are reports which are in your calendar year end, and these are for the entire calendar year. So that's why they take a little bit longer. And my advice is always make sure December's current. Close your month of December. Go to lunch. Go to a meeting. Go to something that's going to take like half an hour to an hour, because it might take that long to run all those, because they're for an entire calendar year. Okay. There is a way to reprint your 1099s. So you'll go into your file archive, utilities, file archive. You're going to go to your calendar year reports and the appropriate year for your forms. You're going to have a window open up. And of course, as you said, every time you run reports, you're going to get 1, 2, 3. So maybe you want your MISC You want to make sure that you use your latest and greatest file by the timestamp. Open that up, and then you would print page 1 of 1, page 3 of 3, whichever form you need to print that one if you need to reprint. We do have an option of 1099 document storage and on-base. We can do that. A couple of districts took advantage of that. We used to do that regularly. Not so much anymore because you can save them in the file archive. They're going to be there. So, but some districts like that, just for continuity. And we can talk about that on a district by district basis. So you just find what copy you want, and you run those forms, and then you can save that for you. You'd upload them to ShareBase, and then contact OnBase and us. So, and that does it. I know, I'm looking at 9:45.
You're fine. My watch went off.
9:48, 3 minutes over. That's pretty good with technical difficulties. All right, again, make sure your files are uploaded by January 16th. We need to run procedures on that. Our systems manager is going to do that to make sure everything is as it should be. Nothing's going to get rejected. And then mailing to your vendors. Usually we have that right after you submit to ShareBase.
Years a day.
All right. And we will be closed December 24th,
Admin.
December 25th, December 31st, and January 1st. It's odd Wednesdays and Thursdays this year for
Christina
holidays.
doesn't get holidays, I don't think.
So she's expected to work every day.
All right.
Nope.
You are on the mic. Just be aware. That does it for my part. I'm going to go ahead and pause this. And then if you are ready to get your forms, we're going to go upstairs. We can help you out. You can load your forms if you're done. If you're back for payroll, then you can come back down if you want. And Tanya will be continuing on at
Really exciting
10:15.
stuff then.
Oh, there's so much change in payroll.
What day?
If anybody wants to follow me for your forms.
I know. Yeah, y'all are. No, I don't think she makes those.
I mean, I just go in on my own and do it.
Well, I have to come in and do, I know you guys are anxious. Before I even, first of all, I'm Tanya Chase. I do mostly payroll. Before we jump into the checklist, all 20 pages of it, I'm going to talk about overtime because I know that's the big topic this year. I also want to cover two other things before everybody gets bored of me. The first one, the easy one, only because this has been coming up a lot lately, and I just wanted to point it out. If you are using Mass Change to change your insurance rates for the coming year, used to be that we had two different Mass changes, one for the employee rate, one for the employer rate. I created one that will do both at the same time. So if you are doing them one at a time and you don't want to do them anymore, let me know and I can load the new Mass change. Also, if you're going to do that, because this is the other one, when you come into core payroll item, it defaults to up here in the left-hand corner, it defaults to this payroll item. You do need to change that to annuity in order to see both employee and employer rates. That's a common one. They're like, I can't see the employer rate. Well, you got to change it. So once you do that, you should get both rate, which is employee rate, and then employer rate is on here too. If you click on Mass Change, and I'm sorry to those of you at home that this is such a delayed thing. If the only definition that you have is employee and employer, let me know. We can load in employee and employer so you can do it both at the same time. I just thought I'd mention that because I know everybody's been doing that here lately. The other thing that I want to briefly touch on is ESS, employee self-service. If you are a district that is already using employee self-service, You probably know that you can now do electronic or digital only W-2s. So your employees can opt in to only receive their W-2s electronically. It's really nice because it's connected to USPS. So first of all, when they log into ESS, they have to opt in. So they get a verbiage, they say, yep, I agree to that. I'm only going to get it electronically. I'm responsible for logging into this application and printing it off. I would not get a mailed copy. They agree to that. It talks to USPS. And then when you go to create your mailable forms, it will skip those people. But then when you do your employer copies, you can include those people. So you have a complete set of employer copies. If you're not using ESS and you're interested, it's too late for this year. But next year, kind of keep it on your radar and we can get that set up early in the year. So that way you can give your employees a chance to do that. It's just that a lot of districts or a lot of companies are going to this route. So I think it's nice. And it used to be, we always got questions about it, but because the employee has to sign off on it, and then there was no good way to determine, oh, this person signed off and this person didn't. I got to pull out the, because it connects to USPS, it works seamlessly. So, okay. Overtime. You probably have all heard that big, beautiful bill. Qualified overtime is now deductible on their taxes, and so therefore they need to know what that is. Qualified overtime is the halftime, not the full time and a half. It's not all of their overtime. It's the halftime that they got paid. That's what they're allowed to deduct. This has been very fluid, and I swear by the week it changes. The IRS did deem back in October, I think it was, that they were not changing the W-2 for tax year 25. So there's no changes to the W-2. They also, October or November, I can't remember, they said that there's a penalty relief for employers. So if you do not provide this to your employees, there's no penalty for tax year 25. Then as of Monday, I think, they have decided that you can report it using box 14 of the W-2. SSDT has been working pretty much nonstop on this, making sure changes are put in place on top of what they need to do for this year. They're working really hard to make next year super easy. So expect lots of changes, lots of information to come out about that. Things such as there's already a new rate type called blended overtime. I'm a little fuzzy on the details of that one as far as how that one's supposed to operate, because I was told one thing and then I saw something different today. So that's coming. One thing I will tell you, if you are paying overtime, please make sure you're using the overtime rate type or the blended overtime. Again, more to come on that one. But if you are using miscellaneous, there is not a good way to track that. The system's not going to have a good way to determine that was overtime. There's also a new box on the position screen that says overtime eligible. I don't know what it says. It's new, it's coming.
Yeah.
Details still coming. That's probably more for next year. But for this year, in order to get it on box 14 of your W-2, you will have to put it under core adjustments. And here we go. If you would go create, you're going to find your employee. Your payroll item is 001, so your federal tax. And then the type is W-2 overtime. You're probably going to use a transaction date of something like 12/31. The amount is going to be the full amount of that halftime. So this can be mass loaded. I have also developed a report that will pull. So if you are using the overtime rate type, the report pulls all of the overtime for the year. I'll show you, I have an example. I had to use live data from a district, so I had to kind of, if you see this and it's your district, I'm sorry, but I took away all of the incriminating information. So basically, this is kind of what it looks like. Everything in blue is what pulls on the report. So it's got their employee number, their name, the pay date, position number, the description. Then of course, pay type is always going to be overtime, their position description. It gives you their units and the rate that was used and the total amount that they were paid. So how do you get this to work for you? Well, what I did, and again, I've tested this a few times and I can't swear it's going to be perfect every time. In fact, it's already not perfect, but what you do is you take the rate and divide it by 1.5 to get the base rate. This is what I did. I mean, it's probably more complicated than it needs to be. And then I determined what the halftime was. So I did this, the math, the original rate minus the base rate. And then to get the qualified overtime, I did that times the number of units. That was how I came up with this. Again, if you come up with a better way, knock yourself out, but this is what I did. So then it's a little more complicated than that because this is, so you can see here, I know it's a little hard to see, but I've got employee 1 is on here, several times. So I need to total that. I don't really want to have to, I guess you could load every one of these individually. I don't know what that would do on the W-2. But what I would suggest doing is doing a subtotal on this. And I'm more than happy to help anybody this is a little more beyond their Excel skills. But if you go to data, I can't see it. Go away. There we go. Got it out of my way. You can do this subtotal. And I want it to, at each change in employee number, I want it to sum, and then I want it to sum the qualified overtime. That was the title I gave that column. Again, everything in green is columns that I created that I did the formula on. When I say okay, you can see here, line 16 is my total for employee 1. So I get a total of 1367. This is where it gets a little like, what's she doing? If you click over here on this little 2, it gives you the breakdown, kind of the summary of it. So then I did, if you go back to home, you can do find, select, and then you can go to special, visible cells only. I know, I'm more than happy to help anybody with this. You say okay, and then you can copy and paste this into a new tab.
Take it.
So, because then you're left. Yes, please put in the ticket. We'll help you.
Yeah.
Because then you're left with the employee number and the qualified overtime, which is what you need to begin your mass load file. You do have to do it. We're not done yet because then you have to take this because it's got total at the end,
Right.
and you got to do then back under data, text the columns. Delimited is what you want. You want to change it after the space. And then what it does is everything after the space gets moved into a new column. So then I'm left with my employee number and my column for overtime. That's a lot. If you're like, she just talked in French, then we're happy to help. But that's the easiest way I can come up with to help everybody for this year. Like I said, next year, lots of changes coming, and I think there's probably going to be a way for the system to do it for you. Fingers crossed.
Hey, Tanya, if I mentioned I hate payroll.
Just every time I talk to you.
And I've already made a note to call Tanya because we do a blended overtime in our district for like bus drivers who do like custodial, and they do like distribution and stuff like
So,
that. So
I should mention that. So, because I just went right through that. This, when I did this little formula here, to get my base rate and my halftime rate, if it was a blended rate, it's not accurate because it's the blended rate. I gotta be honest with you, I'm not totally sure what you're supposed to do in that case. I guess you would have, like, if you're using a blended rate, do you take the original blended rate and then figure out what the halftime is of that? Because if that's the case, then this would be right. Again, I still gotta think through a lot of this. I've been trying to work on it, but it's like I said, it's been ever changing. So. Any questions? Like I said, I know it's a lot. Any questions right off the bat on that one?
You're gonna have step by step.
I'm hoping to have, again, it's one of those things that if anybody had to do the GASB 101, it's a little hard. I know, I don't even want to bring it up.
Why'd you bring that up? I feel nauseous.
Gosh.
It's a little like that. It's not quite as bad, but it's kind of like, well, how did you, because if you're not using the overtime pay type, I don't know, you're gonna manually go through all of your payrolls. That's the only thing I know to tell you. And if you're using miscellaneous instead of OT.
That's how we pay it, is a miscellaneous and just noted as a BOT, as blended overtime.
It's noted though, in the description,
In the description, I always put BOT.
so then you're gonna have to run it we can create a report for that.
Okay.
But I would highly recommend not doing that anymore.
I put mine in a different account code, so that's kind of nice too. Like if I didn't use overtime, but
Yeah.
you said it's mandatory for this year.
Well, it's not mandatory.
Suggested.
There is penalty relief if you do not
Okay.
put it on their W-2.
So I was told from my treasurer, I guess maybe like last month's treasurer's meeting, that we could send a letter instead of putting it in box 14.
So again, this has been ever changing because the
Okay.
box 14 was just like, I just got wind of that on
Okay.
Monday.
Yeah.
So I think before that, it was kind of like, you can send letters, you can send
Okay.
reports. I've heard even some districts saying, not districts here locally, but the comment was, look, I put your overtime on every one of your pay stubs.
Oh, wow.
So that's my due diligence. Look, I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to tell you what you can and can't do because I am not a tax professional, but I do know there's penalty relief. I do suspect that if it is somebody who is very savvy in the tax world and knows about this, they're likely to ask you for it, what it was. But I guess you could say, well, do it. If you don't want to go through this and put it on their W-2s, then you do it on a case-by-case basis. I don't have a lot of good answers there, but there is penalty
I
relief.
do go ahead and do it for 2025, box 14, follow all the rules. What do I need to keep, I guess, in case we get audited? How do I prove that was the overtime? Okay, say that I was using miscellaneous.
For what you
What's
reported
my
to.
backup? Yes. Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of forgiveness. Again, I don't know. I would highly recommend doing some research on the, and I can send some links because there's guidance on it. Because literally this just came in July.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why there's a lot of well, we're not changing the W-2. There's gonna be penalty relief because employers need time to be able to account for all of this.
And communicate.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, very.
So, like I said, I do think next year we're gonna be in a much better situation,
Okay.
but this year we're kind of all just and I'm gonna try to put a document together and get out to everybody, just like with this report and using that new box and changes that are coming. Hopefully sometime next week I can have that put together and sent out, just so you have and some of the, I've seen some really good, documents from the IRS, so. All right. So if you learned nothing else today, at least we got those things out of the way. Oh, and I can't show you currently, if you were to test this out, that box 14 code isn't in existence yet. I do believe it's in this Friday's update. Cause I did try it and I was like, why didn't that work? And I was like, oh, wait a minute, cause the update's not there yet. That's how, quick everything is changing. Okay. All right, moving on to the checklist, 20 pages of it. If you're new to payroll and you're like, well, why is this thing 20 pages? It's because it's super detailed. It's not because it's really that bad, and a lot of it is stuff that you can quickly check off. But we do put a lot of details into it to help prevent, those, what do I put here? First thing is an optional. If you have a BSO, Business Services Online account, you can do an SSN verification file. I honestly don't know how many districts are doing this. Frankly, I don't know of anybody that's doing it. I'm not saying that they're not. They haven't told me about it. It just verifies that the social that you use and the name that you're using matches what is on file with the Social Security office. We do not have to do it because, in fact, part of the reason why we require that your files get submitted to us early is because we actually run those through, and if we get errors, we send it back to you to fix. So if you choose to skip this, it's not the end of the world. But there are directions on here on how you can process that. NC1s. Here's my next big topic. NC1 is life insurance premiums. So this is board paid life insurance over $50,000. It does have to be processed on their payroll because they do get taxed on that, anything over that 50,000. It is really, really, really beneficial if you run this through payroll. If you forget to do it and we have to do manual adjustments, especially if you have a lot of employees that get this, it's not gonna be a lot of fun. So before your final payroll of the year, please, please, please run your NC1s, your life insurance payments. We have a calculator on our website. If you're not totally sure how to do that, it's based upon their age, their life insurance amount over the 50,000, and how many months they had it. That's another thing to point out here is if you have staff that change salaries in the middle of the year and therefore their rate or their life insurance amounts change. So maybe it goes from 200 to 300,000 in the middle of the year. You need to account for that. It's not 300,000 for the whole 12 months. That was something that came up last year. So you really need to be paying attention to that and make sure you're using the correct life insurance amount for the correct number of months. You can process that through Future Pay, which is just under payroll payments. You can do it in current too, but I don't ever recommend current. So I'm just going to use future. You just find your employee, pick on the same guy over and over again. You can use their regular stretch pay compensation, and then the pay type is life insurance premium. I do recommend putting in a description, NC1 life insurance, something like that. And then typically districts will say a unit of one and whatever that amount is. It does not apply to retirement, but if you accidentally leave that box checked and you try to save it, it will error out and tell you it cannot apply to retirement. So you just uncheck it and then save it. So. We used to have all the instructions on how to do it manually. I took those out. It was like a whole page, and if you have to do it manually, call us. Adoption assistance. I don't know anybody that does this, but if you need to do it, it is adoption assistance is the pay type. You do it just like the life insurance premiums.
Tanya,
Yes.
so we have to do if they got their raise in September, we have to do 8 months and then 4 months?
If their life insurance is based upon their salary, and at that point in time is when their life insurance amount changed, then yes, technically speaking, you should.
I don't know. Okay.
Because that's the other, some people get really confused on, well, their salary changed, but did their life insurance? Because it's all about what their life insurance was, not necessarily their salary, even though a lot of times they go hand in hand. Reimbursable employee expenses. This is a very niche thing. I always have to do a lot of research when somebody calls me like tuition reimbursement or Um, I don't know, weird things like that. I like to deal with those one-on-one because I have to do a lot of research to figure out what's taxable, what's not taxable, how it's supposed to be processed. Just make sure you're kind of mindful of those things and what needs to go on the W-2. That might need to be processed. Your OSDI code, this is probably already in existence. Unless maybe you created a new OSDI payroll item this year and maybe didn't fill this in. You would just want to verify these, and that is going to be under, if you go to core, payroll item configuration. So you're looking, so the 4-digit code has to be the first part of the W-2 abbreviation. So you can filter for OSDI here. And you're looking for this W-2 abbreviation column. And you can see that only my first one is correct, where it's got the 4-digit code at the front of it. The rest of them would be incorrect because that code is not in there. The city W-2 abbreviations. This is what prints on their W-2, so it needs to be something that makes sense to the employee so they know which city tax was withheld. Same place, except instead of OSDI, you're looking for city. So you can quickly just look through there. City tax would not be very self-explanatory, so Westerville is a little more like, oh, okay, that's what city was withheld. Again, these are probably updated, but just take a peek at them. Tax entity codes, you need to have those in there, and on the payroll item configuration. This is required if you are going to file the W-2s with that city electronically. So it's this field right here, tax entity codes. If you use RITA, which I think pretty much probably everybody does to pay at least some of their cities, you want to make sure that at the bottom of the payroll item configuration that the RITA code and RITA description is filled in. This can be located on that 3-digit code is on their website. So you want to make sure that is filled in. You also, I think that's later on in the checklist. I won't go there yet. Oh yeah, it is. It's right here. You also want to make sure that I would make it a habit for all of your city taxes, but you want to make sure that you go to payroll item, you want to make sure that they're listed as either a resident or an employment tax. It's required for RITA entities, not necessarily required for, the ones you pay directly, but it's just best practice to put it in for everybody. So if I go to city tax item, I can see right here my deduction type. So I've got employment, there's residence, and then I could just filter if I wanted to for not applicable. And if I wanted to change all those to be whatever they apply to, you could do that. But just make sure that if it's a RITA entity, it does have to be on there. I believe also if it's CCA, which I believe there's only one district that has to deal with CCA. So I'm going to skip right over CCA because there's only one district that's using it. And I believe that last year that district filed paper copies, not electronically. So we got to avoid the nightmare that is CCA. However, if CCA is a new one for you in your district and I'm skipping over it, please call me. We'll talk about it. We'll get you through it. HSAs, as long as your payroll item for the HSA is listed as, it needs to be annuity type field needs to be set to other. And then it's also, the type is, I don't know if I have one in here. There we go. Is health savings account. So it's gonna be health savings accounts, the type, annuity type is other. As long as you have it set up that way, it does what it needs to do on the W-2. With the exception, skipping ahead, yeah, right here. If you pay board paid HSA amounts through USAS, through accounts payable, those do need to be loaded into USPS as an adjustment, so that way their HSA amount is correct. We can mass load it, you can manually key it in. I know there's a couple districts that do this. I think most of them are mass loading based upon some report, but you do want to make sure that you do that because it does appear on their W-2. Month end closing, skipping right over that. You do that every month. Just make sure you're hitting all of those items, doing your serves and stirs for pay reports. You can do the monthly reports if you want to. Nothing new there. Nothing out of the ordinary for month end closing. Same with quarter end closing. Again, this is you do this a couple times a year. I don't want to waste your time on all of that. You know how to do it. If you are not running your quarter report every month, might I suggest that you do that? Same thing with your W-2 report. There's somebody sitting in here right now who, because she does it every single month, she was able to catch something right away, and we knew what month it pertained to. So unfortunately, that month had 700 odd things that went down. But we found it and she was able to document it. So now when we get to calendar year, we're not like, oh yeah, what happened? So I do recommend quarter report, W-2 report at least once a month. Make sure you're balancing, because if something is wrong, you know it just happened. If you just balance the prior month, you know it just happened, and you're not at the end of the year struggling with what happened back in February. There's some tips on here. So if you get, when you run the quarter report, the third page from the bottom, I think, is where you have your totals. And if you get that, that warning that says calculated adjusted gross different than total adjusted gross from total records, there's a couple of tips of things that can cause that. Deceased employees will cause that. The important thing is to just note it. So if that happens, note what that amount was, and that's why it's there. And then you're going to be looking every single month. Does that amount change? As long as it stays the same, you're good. The other thing that can cause it is if you have an annuity that, say you withheld it, let's say you withheld it in January and then you refunded it and you end up putting a stop date of December, that will actually cause errors on your W-2 or on the quarter report, because it stops looking at that after that stop date. So if you're going to put a stop date on something, make sure it is after the last time you actually withheld it, even if you refund it. Running the W-2 report. Again, you can start running this now. There's no reason to not run it. You can run it and start balancing, and you can also run it and look for warnings or errors. There's actually if you go to W-2 reports and then the W-2 report and submission, if I do report, there's actually, you can run it for just employees with errors. It will run it a little bit quicker, but I would recommend just running your full report. I'm not going to run it in here because who knows what I would get. Oh, I guess I can. I ran a few payrolls here. catch up with me? So, oh, cause I ran it for 25. Hang on. If you run it for everybody and for everything, you can use Control F to look for the word error. And I'm gonna have all kinds. But basically you can look for the word error or warning, and you can start to see, oh, are these okay, or do I need to address those? Errors are obviously, they need to be fixed. Warnings, maybe they do, maybe they don't. It's just, it depends. Also, when you're balancing, you want to use the very last page of the W-2 report, the one that says report summary. That's your totals. If you notice, just above it, there's another one that says employee type summary. You will not balance for that report because that is people that does not have Medicare or does have Medicare. One or the other. It's not the right report to balance to. You want the very last one, report summary. Like I said, start running that now. There's no harm in it. You're not doing anything wrong. Run it and you can start fixing errors and warnings. And make sure you're balancing. Your federal total gross on the W-2 report should match with, from the pay reports, your total gross from there. I'm sure everybody has some sort of a spreadsheet that they're keeping and balancing to. There's a couple of items that will affect the balancing. So like your W-2 report, the taxable gross actually includes your Medicare pickup, whereas on your quarter report, it does not. So some things like that. NC1 is treated a little bit different. So just those are things that can cause you some issues. And we're happy to help with that. That's really a one-on-one situation. And if you're struggling, we can usually find it. And almost every time it's your spreadsheet, not the system. You want to make sure that you're processing all of your outstanding payables. Make sure there's nothing sitting out there that's maybe got some wonky pay cycle. Make sure you pay all of those out. Number 18, this is on here not as a you have to do it right here. It's as a reminder to you that you need to complete and file any quarter end and year end submission forms. So like your federal 941, the state 942, which is now only annually, not quarterly like it used to be. And your cities, you have to file those. I believe those aren't due until at the end of February. You have to get those filed, but you have to do your annual reconciliation. So again, doesn't have to be done at this point. It's just a reminder to you that it needs to be done. This is just doesn't always work out perfectly, but just to double check that your city withholdings are the correct rate and that everything's working out that way. It should be their taxable gross times the percentage should be the tax withheld. That's not always true. If you've got somebody that's split, it's not, or they're using a different rate than the standard rate, because sometimes, the reciprocal. You need to do your ODJFS report like you do every quarter. We will send out the share-based link for you to upload that to us because we file that for you. That's one where you want to make sure that weeks and wages are correct. If you have somebody that has weeks and no wages, you want to know why. Usually it's because they're missing a calendar stop date. If they have wages and no weeks, it could be that they were paid out. It was like a severance pay, or it could be that they don't have a calendar start date or days on their calendar. So things to look at. This is all pertaining to ODJFS. OPSI report, if you have OPSI as a union, sometimes come early, maybe March, they will ask you for a report from your year. It's a little difficult to pull that at that point in time, so we just suggest running the OPSI report at the end of the year. If you do not have that in your report manager, let us know and we can add it. Some districts have, like, there's some custom ones out there, so sometimes we can play with it and get it more to what you want it to look like, but. Okay, so now we're to the W-2 processing. If you have to make any adjustments to wages, I'm gonna suggest that before you do that, let's have a conversation about it and make sure that it is what you need to do. This should not be common. You should not have to be making a bunch of changes. Third-party sick pay is one that usually happens this time of year, but everything else should pretty much be running through the system. Dependent care, as long as your dependent care payroll item is set up as dependent care, you don't have to do anything. But if for some reason it was not set up as dependent care, this is the instructions on how you can add that on their W-2 for dependent care. Third-party sick pay. If you get something from a third-party entity and it says third-party sick pay, the first thing you need to find out is it taxable or not? There's two different ways that we have to deal with it. We have a whole nother document on how to do all these adjustments, but that is the first thing to figure out is it taxable or not? Most of the time it is not, because most of the time it's, I believe, trying to remember, it ends up being taxed when it's withheld, so therefore it's not taxable when it gets paid. So if your payroll, like if it's American Fidelity and it's a regular payroll item, oftentimes that's not taxable. But if it's an annuity, then it's probably taxable. But I usually say contact that third party and verify with them first. And if that comes up, let us know. We can send you the extra document. We can help you with that, just to make sure everything gets put in there correctly. Fringe benefits, if you have any fringe benefits that need to be on the W-2, this is also a hot topic that I choose to talk individually with, because there's a lot of, I see districts do it this way, and I'm not here to judge. I can only tell you what I read, and I'm not a tax professional. Because, you know, what you decide to put under fringe benefits is. Same thing with taxable benefits. Again, it's a one-on-one conversation. We can talk about it if you think you have something like that. And that would be things like, I think that would be something like gift cards. That if you give your employees gift cards for whatever reason, I do believe they are taxable. There's a big topic about vehicle allowance and whether or not that's taxable. Tuition reimbursement over a certain dollar amount, you know, how do we deal with those? So we can talk about those. Employer health coverage. Again, as long as your payroll item configuration is set up and is selected for employer health coverage, everything happens the way it needs to. The exception to this is if you have somebody who goes out, maybe they're out on unpaid leave and they're paying you directly for their health insurance. So maybe over the course of a couple of months, they pay you $1,000. That technically needs to be included in this amount. So you can do an adjustment to add that. It is not, let's see. It is not an override. So if you have somebody that paid you $1,000, your amount when you do this is going to be $1,000. It's not going to be 21,000, you know, whatever they paid plus that 1,000. It just adds to whatever you put on this adjustment gets added to what was happened through the system. vehicle lease information if you have something like that. So this is my little blurb about qualified overtime. So you do want to do this if you're making that decision. I just put some verbiage in here and talked about it's box 14. Oops. And the code is going to be QOT. And if you're using that for adjustments in W-2 overtime, the code will be QOT. Like I can't demo it because it's not out yet, but so we're kind of back to the beginning where you're going to create your W-2 report. At this point in time, everything else should be done. At this point, you should be like, all right, one final verification before I go through all my final steps. So this is one final look. Again, if you read through here, the reason these are so long is because we literally talk about every single question that is asked you. So output type, report is defaulted. The format, all of this is kind of in here. That's why it's so long. Include fringe benefits in box 14. This is optional if you want to do that. So I do know some districts choose to put in box 14. I guess if you're using, I'll have to test that out because I don't know if you're going to put the overtime in box 14 using the adjustments. Do we have to include that in order for it to be on the W-2 or will it happen automatically? I think it's going to happen automatically, but I can't test that yet until it's released this weekend. I believe this is more for some districts like to put like union dues because it's a payroll item. So that way staff know what they paid in their union dues. I've seen some districts put what they paid in retirement. So that is, I'll show you real quick. So it's right here, so I'm on the W-2 report. And if I do include fringe benefits in box 14, and then I can come down here and I can select what I want to be in there. If you did this last year and we had a conversation, you can do a save and recall up here. So that way you don't have to remember every single year what you selected from the prior year. Hopefully you have something like fringe benefits like I have right here. So if I come in here and I select that, it will automatically check the box, include fringe benefits, and it's going to give me the codes that I used previously. If you didn't do that last year, I highly recommend doing it this year. So you're basically going to set all of this up with the include fringe benefits, my sort options, I want it by name, your codes. It will only print 3. So if you have a list of 7 on here, it's going to hit the first 3 that it sees. So you want to prioritize. Okay, I want everybody's union dues on here. So that's going to be number 1. Now, if you have 7, but that employee only has 3 of the 7, they're going to see all 3. But if somebody has all 7 of them, they're only going to see the first 3 on there. So, but yeah, I do recommend set all this up and then you can come up here to the save and recall and you can call it whatever, 2025 box 14. And then if I tab over, I can hit this save button. And so now next year, when I come in here, I can find my save and recall and I don't have to think about what my box 14 options were. But I feel pretty confident that whether you select that box or not, that the W-2, the overtime will be on there. There's another one that shows up. I can't think of what it is right now though. All right, so you're gonna run that one final time, make sure it's good. Once you're confident in all of that, then you are ready to create the tape file. We need it uploaded to us by January 16th. Again, this is so we have time to run it through all of our checks and we have time to get it corrected before it's actually due at the end of the month. And every year we have something. A name's not right, it's got something extra, it's missing something, a social doesn't match. So to do that, so this is the, gonna be the submission. So again, we're under reports, W-2 reports, and then W-2 report and submission. And then you want to select submission. And you'll notice that depending on what I'm selecting here on the output type, it will change what I see on my screen. So in this case, I want submission. And then I can do it's the SSA submission file. Well, let me back up. I totally skipped over something that's very confusing. You need to verify, if you have done this last year and the year before, you know that there's a lot of checking and unchecking of this one specific box. You need to verify that under configuration, W-2 configuration, that the district will submit own W-2s is not checked when you're creating this file. If it is checked and you create this file, we are going to ask you to redo it because it will not go through our system. So before you run the W-2 submission file and the Ohio submission file, you want to make sure that this is unchecked. So let's show you that. Should be under System, Configuration. At the very bottom, W-2 configuration, and district will submit own W-2s. That should not be checked for your SSA and your Ohio files. At some point later on, there's a chance you have to come back in here and check this, depending on what type of files you need to create. I also highly recommend, since we're in here, checking this box to include only the last four. So to truncate that social security number. That way on any printed files, that social is not on there. It's not required to be on there. It will still be on the electronic submission to the IRS, but it will not be on any printed files. So that way, if you do need to email it, at least that's not on there. I had a couple of times this year where auditors needed it, and I'm like, don't email it. You know, make sure you don't email it because it's got so I do recommend check that box and leave it checked. This enable W-2 digital delivery that pertains to ESS. So for, again, make sure that's unchecked for this step. And I try to put notes. I know that there's a lot on here, and I don't know of a better way to do it. And I know that there's so many words that people are like, skip past this. But it is important that you read through this because we do put very specific instructions in here. I try to make it big. So you're going to make sure that's unchecked, and then you're going to create your submission file. Again, it's the SSA W-2 submission file. It will be a W-2 tape file. It actually, if you have that box checked, I believe it actually says MAST instead of tape. So that is your first sign that something's wrong. And then we will get out a share-based link that has a place for your W-2, your SSA, your Ohio. I think that's all we need.
Cities, do you do cities anymore?
We do a couple. Cincinnati, I know we do. Maybe there's a couple of cities. I have
Kentucky?
Nope, Kentucky you do on your own. Kentucky you do on your own. Rita you do on your own. So
Indiana I do on their
but
own.
we'll get that sent out for you to upload. Your Ohio, again, when you're creating Ohio, and again, there's a note here, it's just not quite as big, but you want to make sure that that box is not checked. So I'll show you that real quick. And you're going to click on the W-2 state options. So this is where you create Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. It defaults to Ohio. You're just going to make sure that you type in all the information that you need to there. Once you have everything good, you're going to hit generate W-2 submission file. It's going to create a file that comes to us. Okay, so if you have to create a file, so this is my big, blue box. If you need to do Kentucky, Indiana, Rita, or cities electronically, you're going to go back to that and to that configuration, and you're going to check that box. What it does is it puts a header on your file. The reason we can't have it on there is because we create our own header because of the way that we file. So that's why it's every time there's one that has one, you guys actually put your own header on it, it errors out for us. So before you process, the next couple of steps, you want to go back and check that. So if you need to do Kentucky, and this yellow is a lot of information about Kentucky and Indiana and how those get filed. Kentucky has changed. It used to be that anything, I need to change this. Or did they, was it Kentucky or Rita? Rita changed to 10, right?
I thought they all went
Yes.
down. Like to
So
10.
Rita, I'm not sure if Kentucky's still 26. It used to be, I need to look at that. If you had less than 26 employees, you could file paper with Kentucky, but it may have changed. Honestly, if you have any Kentucky, it's probably easier just to file online because it's a quick file. You don't have to worry about mailing them copies of the W-2s. Are you looking it up?
I'm trying to.
Yeah, I know it's not easy to find. So the Kentucky and Indiana files are, you're just going to change. So you're going to choose either Indiana or Kentucky and fill in the necessary information. And you're going to create you're going to generate the submission file. Those we do not need. You're going to upload those directly to whatever website portal they have for you. Your Rita file, again, this used to be less than 100 and now it's less than 10. So if you have only 10 forms, you can do it paper. Otherwise, you do need to do electronically. Again, Rita's pretty easy to do it electronically. You do have to have that box checked in configuration because if you don't, it will error out. I had that happen several times last year. We do not need the Rita files. There's no share base link for that. CCA, again, that's going to be a similar thing to Rita. So creating a city file, you do not, I've been out of the game for a while. It's been 4 years since I've actually, had to do the annual reconciliations. We have a report that you can run that gives, so you have to do your reconciliation. And it used to be you could do papers, but they said they wanted either W-2s or a listing. We have a report that will give you a listing. So it's the employee's name, their social, their address, and all of their tax information for that city. To my knowledge, the last I have heard, that is still an acceptable method to do your reconciliation for the cities. If that is incorrect, please let me know. If a city has said, we don't want this. You can also send copies of the W-2s. That floats your boat.
Kentucky, it's the print and mail option is for those reporting fewer than 26.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
the same. Okay.
It's the same. We're good.
But if it needs to be filed electronically, like I think City of Cincinnati's one, we have to do something with it. So the cities still have to come to us, right? I swear I looked at this.
I think we still do a lot of CDs.
Nah, Jill has to do something with Cincinnati. I know that.
Okay.
And I think it's if you need it on a CD. If you can file electronically directly with them, we don't have to do anything. But I think City of Cincinnati is one that I think she still has to manipulate because they don't like our files. So she manipulates it and gets it back to you. I believe I need to confirm with her. If you need it on a CD, I think a couple of districts still submit on a CD. Or some are doing flash drives now. But I think like the flash drive situation was, we didn't have to do anything with it. You guys just created it. The key is checking that box that says district will submit own W-2s, because that puts the header. Sorry, there's so many cities and every city does it differently, and only done it once a year. I'm like, oh. City of Cincinnati needs to be electronic for 100 employees or more. We do have down here some information. Do look at this, because these are questions that get asked when you run the city. Let me show you. So if I do the city options.
And I thought it was the delay.
Well, now
You
it's
were delayed for a little bit and then it like caught up, which is odd.
trying not to flip back and forth a whole lot.
I think that's what it might be.
Well, there are questions, and it says when you're creating your W-2, the city files include city name. It needs to be checked for these specific cities, and then it should not be checked for the remainder of those. So as we have learned what the cities want, we've tried to update this, but include amounts for all cities. That actually gets checked for every city that you create a file for. So if you don't have notes on what you did last year, or you're new and you're like, I don't know, we can talk about it. So at this point, you should be done. You should be done creating all your submission files at this point. So we do ask that you go back to W-2 configuration and uncheck that box that says district will submit own W-2s. That way it's ready to go for next year. Okay, so this is where it talks about the truncating SSN, just because we're getting ready to do all of the mailable forms. So when you go to create your W-2 print file, that is going to be under, hopefully this is going to start functioning. It's under W-2 reports and then mailable forms. Good. So this is the same as last year, with one exception. If you created that save and recall, it shows up here too. So you can pull that in for your mailable ones. Which is, again, because this is where it's important, right? Because this is where box 14 comes into play, because this is what they're going to get. So you can select, if you have it, you can select it. Otherwise, you're just going to look through here, verify everything's correct. Your sort options, however that needs to be for your district. If you want it by name, maybe you need it by building and then name, if you're going to hand those out. So once you have that, the biggest change is, if you are a district that is using the digital W-2s for this year, so you enabled that and your employees have agreed to that, you want to make sure that this box is unchecked where it says include digital only W-2 employees. Uncheck that for your mailable forms, because otherwise we're going to get a mail form too. And I did note that on here, but it kind of blends in with everything else. So for this, for the mailable forms, it should not be checked. So once everything's good here, when you click generate mailable forms, some shouldn't take long. It creates like a scheduled job. So you see here at the bottom, it says it has started and it's going to generate them. Up here at the top, it tells you, so it just completed, so it'll show you whether or not it's processing or what. Once it's completed, you locate that under reports. Talk too much today. W-2 reports and then form output files. It is always going to put your most recently created one on the top, and you can download that. If as soon as you hit generate, you're like, oh man, I didn't do something, you can delete it and start over. If I download it, it's a zip file. I can open that up, and this is the file that I'm going to run through my printer onto your perforated forms, your folder sealer forms. Kind of like Rhonda said, I highly recommend that you print the first one. Make sure it's aligned perfectly. The last thing you want to do is get through 50 of them and then you don't have enough forms to print them and realize that they're out of line in some capacity. I think last year we had a couple issues where maybe it didn't line up just perfect, but it was good enough that, you know, you could make do, because most people are not sending these out anymore.
It's not like the old days when we had to make sure the boxes, everything fit in the
Right, because
boxes.
they had to send them out to here and
Yeah.
there. So look over these, make sure everything looks good. Before you want to just let's put eyes on it. Once you're good with that, you do want to archive it. So when you hit this button right here, this little box looking guy, it sends it to your file archive so you can easily retrieve it later if you need to print new ones because somebody lost it. This is just talking about box 14 again. Another tip is when you're printing it, you want to go in and choose paper source by PDF page size. That also helps align it a little bit better. Number 43 is archiving those. Next up is creating your print file for employer copies. I do recommend that you do this because those mailable forms is only people that are not getting them electronically if you're using ESS. So that is just under, and this creates the form size as a regular paper. So if you needed to reprint it, it's easy to just print it on regular paper without having an issue. So that's under W-2 report and processing or in submission. And you would just do forms. Same way, you can do your save and recall. And it gives you your box 14. This time, when you're doing your employer copies, you want to include your digital only people because you want a complete set. So you do want to check that box. It's on here. Again, it kind of blends in with everything else that's on here. So I kind of want to make sure. So you just want to make sure that you do that so you have everybody.
Can you truncate those?
It will be, if as long as that box is
Okay.
checked, it will truncate.
Thank you.
This is similar in the way that the mailable forms work. When you generate it, it comes up here, it tells you it's completed, and then it's under your the form output files. Same way, you can download it if you need to, or you can just do the archive button and send it directly to your file archive. Oops, that's not what I wanted. We're getting there, guys. Hang on. The optional on-base archival, similar to what Rhonda said, I don't know how many districts are doing this. So back in the day, on-base was how you accessed your W-2s, your print files. You no longer have to do that because USPS creates them for us and has its own archiving system. But if you want to do that, it kind of gives you, oh, this step number is probably very wrong. That would be step 40. 44. Just keeps getting longer. So there's steps on that. You're gonna notify OnBase and us that you want those archived. So this is also another change. Previously, create the individual W-2s, it was only recommended for people using kiosk or ESS. Now it's recommended everybody does that. The reason being is when you do this, so it is under W-2 reports and it says archive individual forms. If you are using ESS, you have to do this. That's the only way staff are going to get access to their W-2s. But when you run it, again, you've got your save and recall here. You can select those. There is not the box to include W-2 only, digital W-2 only employees because it's going to do it for everybody. You can schedule this. So if you're working on this on January 5th, but you're like, well, but I'm not going to mail my W-2s until the 15th, and I don't want people getting access here before they're mailed. So I don't want it to run until the 15th. You can schedule that. That way they get mailed and they're accessible at the same time. So when you do that, it'll schedule the job and it'll run at that date and time. But what it does, and the reason we're suggesting now that you do this for everybody, is because it goes to your file archive. And you've got this W-2 archive. If I open this, so this is for each individual year. So you would have one for, 25 tax year. It lists everybody individually versus one giant file with all of your W-2s. So that's why I previously wasn't recommending it. One, SSDT wasn't, but also I just felt like it added so much more to the files. I was like, well, why if I can access it here? But it in all fairness, it is easier. You can quickly pull up your people. I don't know if I have anybody in here. But you can quickly find them and download it and give them their form when they lose it. So that is a new change. We do recommend that for everybody now. The W-2 or the CYE state and local wage report, that's the report I was referring to that kind of gives you the totals and all the information that you can send to the cities for their reconciliation. If you do not have this in your report manager, let us know and we can upload that for you. When you run this report, you can run it at any point in time, but December must be current in order to run it. So if you forget to run it in December and you need to run it in January, you just have to make December current so it picks up the correct totals. Again, everything's due by the 16th of January. If you let us know when everything's done, we do kind of keep a checklist to make sure that, we don't have any stragglers out there that we need to call and see if they need any assistance. So just send us a help desk saying, hey, all my files in there, because we also check the files too. Make sure that we have the correct files, because sometimes, the report gets up, the PDF gets uploaded instead of the submission file. So it kind of helps us keep track of things. If you need an electronic submission file for a city, like I said, I think Cincinnati's one of them, or if you need it on a CD or something, create a separate help desk ticket because it goes to somebody else. Once all that's done, you're going to close December. I think some districts are waiting until about the middle of January because they wait till that payroll's posted. That includes those final days of December, and that's okay. But do be closing your posting periods. Please don't wait 6 months to close your posting periods. When you close them, it creates a bunch of files. And if you close it, specifically your lead balance report, if you close December and June of next year, that lead balance report is not correct. So make sure you're closing those in an appropriate time. We submit to federal and Ohio. You are responsible for any other state or city or RETA or CCA. We do federal and Ohio. Our phone numbers, our holidays, and just down here is the box 12 code definitions if you need those. Everybody,
4 minutes to spare.
I don't think my shirt would have been any longer.
We'll be posting this on our website, the recording and then the checklists as well. We were just finalizing everything on the checklists yesterday.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
If you have
you.
questions, you know where to find us.
Oh, that's not-
You know,
Right?